Hey y'all, it's Michelle Pippin, and I am excited to come to you guys and go over a topic that's really the topic of the next strategy sheet that's going to be released to Women Who WOW members. This is a Women Who WOW member benefit, but I wanted to go over a few of these details with everyone who might want to pitch influencers. So if you are a Women Who WOW, then this will soon be up on the Women Who WOW membership site. If you're not a Women Who WOW and you are a seriously driven women entrepreneur, then you need to come and hop on over to us at PlanetWOW.club. Join, because doors are open and I would love to have you. If you fit, right? Like if this is a tribe that you know that you belong in. So today, or actually we've already been live for almost an hour today, and we're going live again talking about how to pitch influencers, and not just how to pitch influencers, but why to pitch influencers, the do's and don'ts of pitching, and how to use your story, and also the dangers of the entire influencer market. Now, I am what would be considered a micro influencer, so that's what technically I would be called, and so it's funny because not only am I pitching influencers, right, actively and ongoing, but I'm also now being pitched, and it's something that's kind of just humbling and fun and all of this. So I kind of get this from both perspectives. And so the big why of pitching influencers comes with an equally powerful warning about relying on the influencer market. And that's where I really want to start today. And again, your strategy sheet, if you're a member, will be up in the member site soon. But let's talk about why to pitch influencers, right? And the truth is, you want to pitch influencers because you want access to their list, right? You want them to talk about you. You want to be able to write for them or have your stuff promoted on their site. You want them to expose what you do to their market that already trust and love them. And so obviously this is the why behind pitching influencers. And the reason that I tell you that it comes with an equally powerful warning is because sometimes we can get so hung up on our need for an influencer to mention us, to promote us, to talk to people about us, to let us on their stage. We can get so hung up on that we sort of abandon the power of the stage that we're currently building. And so when you are pitching influencers, I want you to make a mental note that this is one part of your business, right? It will never be a linchpin in your business. It will not be a hinge in your business. And here is why. You actually don't want it to be those things. You want to be able to stand always in your own power, under your own umbrella, with your own inroads carved out, bringing the right people to your business. You don't want to build a business that is dependent on influencers who might be talking about you or what have you. So that's the big warning, really. I just don't want to put so much focus on this that you lose the knowledge or the awareness of the power that you have on your own stage and under your own umbrella, as you are right now. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But why pitch influencers? That, you know, the obvious is there. We want access to their people, to their stage, and I applaud that. But you also want to have relationships that elevate your brand, that elevate your connections, that elevate your opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a really important thing to pitch influencers, and to not just pitch them and not just show up on their stage and then leave, but to also build relationships with them that are mutually beneficial and that serve them. And here's the thing about influencers is that they are also building their stage, right? And they might be a little further down the line than you are. They might be a little further into this, but they're also building their stage. And so an important thing to keep in mind when you're pitching influencers, and we're going to get into some details of exactly how to do it and maybe what to say, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're pitching them, remember that they have needs and desires and, you know, goals of their own. And So you want to pitch them in a way that serves them, right? The wrong way to pitch is to go straight in and, you know, ask to partner. Hey, I've looked at what you're doing. I think that this would be a great addition. Like, let's do this together. And that's just as weird as, I don't know if you remember the Love Connection show from back in the day. I remember my mom worked a 90-day appointment at the government one summer. And so my brother and I would go to a neighbor's house and they would watch Love Connection. And I remember thinking how strange it was when somebody would go off for a date, they just met them and then they'd come back married. Like, I remember thinking that was so odd. And the same is odd in business. So you don't want to go in, and even if you're super excited, like, you don't want to go in to an unknown relationship and start pitching a marriage right away, right? It's just weird. It's odd. They're not like looking for that right away, etc. And it could very well turn into a business marriage, but it's not where it should start. That's not where the pitch should start. So you don't want to go in with a partnership proposal right away. You also don't want to go in with the verbiage or the assumption that they somehow need you, right? I'll never forget someone wrote to me one time, and, you know, basically, you need to hire me to edit your stuff or whatever. There was a spelling error, or, you know, whatever. And I remember saying to her, like, you missed the point, right? You missed the point. That email generated almost $100,000. So I think you missed the point. And so you don't want to go into an influencer and assume that they need you for some reason. Or, you know, or constantly be hinting around like, well, yeah, you know, I work with people like you. You don't ever want to go in, even though you're pitching them, you don't want to go in with something that is self-serving, and that's obviously self-serving. I get why you want to go there. I want to go there too. And we might even have sort of a long-term plan in our mind. All of that's fine, right? We want to be strategic, but we don't want to go in there with the assumption or the verbiage, actually, that they need us. And we, along with this, you don't want to go in and pitch influencers with an ask, right? It's just the wrong way to start a relationship. And so here are a few things that you do want to do, and then we'll get into the how. So we talked about the why, which is obvious, and we talked about a few don'ts, and now we want to go into a do. So here's one thing that has been I guess a philosophy of mine for a really long time, and that is, I pay homage to no man or woman, right? And so if Oprah walks in, or back, you know, when you're allowed to, you know, view President Trump as a great business story, if he walked in, or if, you know, anybody walks in, like, they're going to be treated the same by me as anybody else, right? And so I'm not going to fawn. I'm not going to ever ask for autographs. Like, and this is a big, important philosophy when you're really pitching influencers, especially mega influencers in your market, is that you don't pay homage, right? There's a long line of people who are willing to, you know, call them rock stars and all this other stuff. Like, you know, it's not that I don't acknowledge their greatness and their brilliance, right? I do, and I do it verbally, but I'm not stumbling all over myself. I will approach and I will converse with them as equals, always. It's just a philosophy of mine. It's a core philosophy of mine. I developed it not when I was in business, I guess, like even as a kid. Like, I just, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that, but do approach influencers. They're just people, and you should approach them and converse with them as equals. And this is something that really changes the conversation right away. And I have some examples that I share of that in the Women Who Wow group, but this is something that's worked really well for me, and it allows me to start my relationship with influencers on a whole different playing ground than if I come up there and, you know, fawned all over myself and, you know, whatever. So so do approaching converse as equals. Another do is you do want to share their stuff and give them whatever stage access that you have, right? So you are pitching influencers in your niche, and even though they are the influencer that you're pitching, or the micro influencer that you're pitching, or the media outlet that you're pitching, or the journalist that you're pitching, like, keep in mind they have their own goals too, and they want to be read by more people, seen by more people, bought by more people. Like, they want that too. And so when you are getting ready to pitch an influencer, or after you've pitched an influencer, or when you're in the process of building that relationship, keep in mind that they want to have their stuff shared. They want you to acknowledge, to give them, if you have a stage, you might have a stage of only 1,000 people on Twitter, or 300 people on Twitter, or what have you, but you can use your stage to help share their content if it's aligned with what you're saying. And I assume you wouldn't be really pitching them if they weren't really aligned with your brand. And so definitely share their stuff. Give them whatever stage that you have control and dominion over, because really, that's what you want from them, right? You want them to be talking about you, sharing your stuff, etc. And by the way, another don't, like, you don't just go up and ask people to share your stuff on Twitter or what have you. First of all, it's not particularly effective. Even if they did it, it doesn't build relationship. And it's funny because I have this one woman who constantly will ask me, do you want me to share your stuff on Twitter? And I'm like, no, it's okay. And she doesn't get it, right? Like, I just don't value that so much. But most influencers absolutely do. And I do in a way too. It's like, you want people to share that, your article was good, or how it impacted you, or what have you. But do share their stuff. Do speak about them publicly, right? And do show up. If you are pitching an influencer, keep in mind that they have the same frustrations that you have, the same fears that you have of maybe going live on Facebook or doing a webinar or whatever. So show up and interact in real time, because they'll remember you, right? They will remember you and they'll appreciate you. One of the members for Women Who Wow, who gets a lot more attention from me than anybody else, is a woman who for 2 years, she showed up at every virtual mastermind. She spoke first, and it's like, I appreciated it so much because I was building a community and I needed some interaction. And so, like, I'm forever in her debt. And you can be that person for whatever your influencer is of choice, right? So show up, interact, serve, share their stuff, right? All of this obviously is before you make an ask. The other thing that you want to do when you are pitching influencers is, and this sort of merges into what I want to talk about next, which is also how to build your own stage and elevate your own stage and presence, so that you become a micro influencer and then an influencer, so that you can have your own stage that people want to get on and profit from, and all of this stuff. And so when you are pitching influencers, you want to make sure that you are showing them exactly why you are different than everybody else who's like competing with you, and they're using the same buzzwords as you, and they might be selling sort of a similar product as you, and all this stuff. You've got to be able to show how and why you're different. And this is where it comes down to your particular story. So one of the things that I love about Women Who Wow is it lets me wake up every day and just be me, right? No business face, no pretense, really. It's just like, you just get to wake up and be who I am, and serve people that I really love and care about. And so, but I did that by building my platform, including my interactions and relationships with influencers. I built that on a platform of my story, right? Of my story, being from the South, having my little country fried like analogies, having a lot of farming and Southern success analogies, being born and raised just very working class, and having a simple lifestyle. And so all of this stuff becomes part of my story and part of my brand, and it sets me apart, not just in the influencer's mind, right? Because, you don't have to look very far to find business coaches who are trying their hand at a membership group, or, women coaches who want to empower other women. Like, you don't have to look very far for that. However, you can only get me by going through me. In order to make that a reality, it's already really a reality for you. In order to make it a marketing advantage for you, you've got to really clarify what your story is, where you are planting your flag in the ground, to make sure that not only influencers in your niche know that you are different, right? That you are somebody who stands out, that you are not like the others, right? Not only so they know, but also so your people know, right? So that when you wake up and message every day, that you have a core message or a core story that you're building everything around, right? Now, the key is to make it a true story and to make it absolutely factually correct so that you don't have to think about it so much anymore. But I do want to give you a few things to think about when you're talking about like sort of defining your own like personal philosophies around whatever topic it is that you cover, or that around whatever product it is that you sell. So whether it's life insurance or chiropractic care or acupuncture or coaching or legal services, whatever it is, in order to effectively build relationships with influencers and same thing, effectively build relationships with your target market, you've got to have a core story that is accurate, that is just truly who you are. It's authentic, it's relentlessly authentic, it's open, it's vulnerable. And I want to give you some kind of questions to ask about that, because this is where you'll stand out in the minds of other influencers. So okay, so I have some notes. So you think about things like your heritage or your childhood, right? So like those become part of your story, or a disability. So, you know, if you have a disability, if you are, you know, up there in age, if you were the 1950s housewife, literally, and kind of change that around, like all of that becomes part of your story. And so think about that, like the heritage, your childhood. Think about also what's become part of your story, your turning points, right? And so for me, I have a couple important turning points. You know, I am, you know, all the things I said I am, like just, you know, simple and living in the country, living in a small town, love all that stuff, love a simple lifestyle, you know, family, faith, and home, like sort of where I am. And so, but also I have some turning points that are pretty critical for my messaging and also critical for conversations that I might have with additional influencers. And so here's the thing, like a turning point for me is when I replaced my income, right? And that was way back when, but it allowed me to see that it was possible to work my own way, right? To not have an office, to not leave my kids, to not have to use daycare. Like all of that was like a realization that I could do it. That was a big turning point for me. Another turning point was when I broke 6 figures in my business for the first time, and that was something that was just so empowering, and it wasn't all I thought it was going to be. But it was very empowering to have gotten there. And then another shift occurred to me when I realized like what had gotten me to where I was income wise was not going to get me to where I wanted to go. And it's a typical Marshall Goldsmith thing, like what got you here won't get you there, which is fine. But for me, what I realized is I had to really I had to shift some things in me. I had to become more vulnerable, more authentic, more present in the lives of my target market in order for me to really reach not just the income goals that I wanted, but also to have the impact and influence that I wanted in my target market. And so that was a turning point for me when I realized it was going to require a lot more from me than just strategy. And so I don't begrudge that journey, I guess, right? I think it's actually a pretty good journey, like to first replace your bills, then break 6 figures, and then start leveraging and scaling and making it easy and flow-based. And I'm sure that I could have made it easier and flow-based like way back then. I just didn't know what I didn't know, and I also didn't have time. I had to do what worked in order to pay my bills, and so I think it was a pretty decently commonsensical progression for a business. So I don't begrudge it, but it was a big turning point when I realized that. The other thing that you might want to journal on is your own personal philosophy. So if you are a life coach, or you are an immigration attorney, or you're a chiropractor, or you're a veterinarian, whatever it is, it'd be good to kind of have some personal philosophy statements written down that really are true and authentic to who you are and your approach to whatever it is that you do, right? So a few things for me, you know, one of my personal philosophies is that it makes it, you know, I'm completely uninterested in getting my name out there, right? It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make financial sense for business. It's a fool's game. And so, like, that's my personal philosophy. I have a personal philosophy called daily, which a lot of people don't like. But it's important to me to show up daily. It's important to building those relationships and creating a true active and engaged community. And so, you know, those personal philosophies. So what do you need personal philosophies around when you're pitching influencers? And the reason it's important when you're pitching influencers is the same reason it's important in general. So when you're pitching influencers, you've got to really stand out from all the other people who might be using the same kind of terminology and the same pricing structure as you, and you need to stand out amongst them. And so you're going to have to use your authentic story to do it. At the same time, remember we talked about the warning of pitching influencers is becoming sort of overly focused on pitching the influencers, overly focused on, you know, what they're going to do for you or how they're the linchpin or they're the next step or whatever. And I can tell you that almost never is that really true, right? The bulk of your money, the bulk of your income will always come from your own stage, from your own messaging. But the same principle of personal philosophy is true in that as well. Like, before you're starting to message and show up every day, it would be good to know, to really define, not know, but to put into words what your personal philosophy is around, you know, the different topics that you discuss with your clients. And so that could be saving money or investing money, that could be website design, that could be, you know, like I said, immigration law, that could be custody and divorce, whatever it is, right? You need to have your own personal philosophy defined, and you need to work that into not just your pitch for the influencer, but also everything else that you do, so that when an influencer looks at you and your presence, which they will, right? Oftentimes before they respond. Now, if you immediately go in for an ask or a partnership or a job or, you know, whatever, then they may not respond at all, and they certainly, you know, won't take the time to go and get to know you. But I can tell you that people that you might even be surprised, even know you exist, are watching, right? They are watching, especially if you're showing up daily. This has come true in my life recently. It's been very, very humbling, and I don't know where the situation I'm referring to is going to go, but it's very exciting, and I had no idea this person or group of people even knew I existed, let alone were watching me. And what they saw was that there's a girl doing something different, right? There's a girl doing something different. There's somebody who's not following our info marketing freaking blueprint. And they took notice. And so whoever the influencers are in your industry will also take notice of you when you are kind of letting your story, your heritage, your childhood, your turning points, your personal philosophies, letting that be the core of everything that you are doing, right? And so you want to work that in. Again, when you're hitting the influencers, obviously, but when they click on you, they should not see same old when they go and click on your blog or on your Facebook page or whatever. You want to work that core sort of authenticity into everything that you're doing. So how do you pitch influencers once you have all of those bases covered? One, you want to make sure that you're going in and building a relationship, right? So how do you pitch influencers? Like, I guess the one thing I would say is you don't, right? You don't pitch them. You know, pitching is sort of like you're hoping that they're going to do something for you or what have you. But instead of pitching them, retweet them, follow them, share their stuff, enter in conversations, again, as a peer, right? As an equal, not as a, you know, I don't know, insecure schoolgirl, right? But you want to go in there as an equal, and you want to support them. You want to share your stage, even if your stage is very small compared to theirs. Still share, still retweet their stuff, still put out there what they've done that's really good, and let them know, you know, applaud them publicly. Build a relationship, ask questions. If they're doing a tweet chat or whatever they call that on Twitter, like if they're doing that, show up and engage, right? Because they notice that. They notice that. You would be shocked at people's numbers. Like you can have a list of, you know, 250,000 people, and or you might be followed by X number of people on Twitter, and very few people actually engage live. It's just sort of the name of the game. I spoke with someone the other day, and there's a mastermind, and it's a lot of money. I don't know what it is, like $4,000 a month or something like that. And it is when there's a call, there might only be like 2 people, and now they've paid $4,000 for this car. There might be 2 people on the line, and so influencers appreciate when you show up live, when you start to engage. And so how do you pitch them? First thing is you just show up and build relationship with them, right? You might even ask, what can I, how can I support you? Hey, you've been such a great influence for me. Like, how can I support you? And there's all sorts of ways that you can build those kind of relationships. And here's the thing. When you are building a relationship with an influencer very deliberately, as we all should, then they are engaging with you. If you're doing it well, you'll notice this because they will start liking some of your posts. They might share, or they might mention it privately, like, hey, I really like that post. I can't believe you had the guts to say that, or whatever they might say. And so even still, like, unless they ask, like, what can I do for you? You don't have to. You shouldn't go in and ask them like, hey, can you share this? Can you promote this to your list, etc., etc. So you want to make sure that you are building it the way you would a friendship, or you're meeting a neighbor of some way, of some sort. Because here's the thing, when they see that you're doing things differently and that you have something special for their list, and they're excited, either they'll ask you like, what can I do for you? Or they will immediately and just automatically share something that you're doing with their list, because it just makes good sense to do so. So I hope that this really helps. The key I want to leave you guys with is to make sure that you do not get hung up on your need for any specific influencer, right? You don't want to get hung up on that. You don't want to lose sight of the power of your own stage exactly as it is right now. If you infuse it with some authenticity and some of those core personal philosophies, and you just show up every day and start messaging, what happens is you'll begin to put out a call that the right people hear, right? And people will say, I have no idea how I found you. And you're thinking, well, I know how you found me, right? Like, I've been showing up every day, and you finally like caught wind of it because you're like me. And so anyway, so I hope that this helps you guys, and I appreciated your thumbs up and your hearts, and I appreciate those of you who were able to attend live. If you have any questions for me, just pop them in the comments below, and I'll check them later on throughout the day. But thank you for the hearts, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. I probably will come back on and do another live stream a little bit later on. I'm not sure of the topic, so if you have something that you'd like me to cover, then just private message me, and I'll be sure to push that out there. All right, talk with you soon. Bye.